So the 16-inch MacBook Pro, it's been a substantial and well-received update to the MacBook Pro, but it's also had a very interesting effect on older models. Today, we're going to talk about it. So, this is what I'm calling the 16-inch MacBook Pro effect. Basically, what's happened, and I've alluded to this in videos and on Twitter, if you go ahead and follow me at Luke Miani, I have alluded to this thing that I noticed lately where the 15-inch MacBook Pros, particularly high-end 2018 and 2019 models, depreciated overnight by absurd amounts. And in today's video, I want to explore that more in depth. Now, I don't have a whole bunch of listings all prepared and ready to go, so we're going to be kind of going through this real time as I'm going and looking on eBay. But I just want to see just how tangible these, I guess you could call them savings on the most recent 15-inch MacBook Pros are, and whether or not they're even worth it. So as you would expect, whenever there's a new MacBook Pro that gets announced, whatever model it replaces loses some value. But the 16-inch MacBook Pro is the most extreme example of overnight depreciation that I have ever seen. So here's why that's happening. So you could argue that the 16-inch didn't really change a ton. We're still using the same processors and the same pricing structure. The base model starts at $2,400 and the upper tier model is $2,800. So while the prices haven't changed, the value has. The graphics in both of these models are much improved and we're getting more storage as standard. So what that means is, in effect, the MacBook Pro has gotten less expensive when compared to an older model. Previously, if you wanted a MacBook Pro with a Core i9 and a terabyte SSD, it was over $3,000. That's just how it worked. Now, however, it's $2,800. And then, of course, we have the AMD Radeon Pro 5000 series graphics. Now, even the base model graphics are on par or ahead of the previous high-end Vega 20 graphics that cost $350. So, what we're seeing here is what happens when Apple brings more value into the standard configurations. Here's my high-end 2019 15-inch MacBook Pro. This guy's pretty loaded out. It's got the 2.4 gigahertz 8-core i9, 32 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte SSD, and the 560X graphics. So it had a retail price of like $37.99 or $38.99, something like that. But if we take the 16-inch and we want to comparatively spec this thing out, so we'll do the Core i9, 32 gigs of RAM, and we can just leave the graphics and leave the storage, and we're at $3,400. So it's $300 to $400 less. We're getting better graphics, significantly better graphics, the better keyboard, the bigger display, the battery, the cooling, all of that other stuff that the 16-inch chassis brings along with it. So what that means is that even though this was a $3,800 computer, no one in their right mind would spend $3,800 or $3,400 on it now. So what we're seeing here is the 16-inch is effectively setting a price cap for the 15-inch models because they were more expensive when you really started configuring them, but there would be no point in spending more money on a 15-inch when you could buy a 16-inch brand new that does the same for less. 2018 with the Core i9, 32 gigabytes, 4 terabyte SSD, and the Vega 20 is under $3,000 with the 4 terabyte SSD. That's insane. This, when it was new, I can't remember, what is that, $6,000? $6,000, something like that? I think that's pretty much the maxed out 2018 MacBook Pro, and I can't remember what the exact price was, but I'm pretty sure it was like $6,100, something like that, a year ago. Look, here's another one, the second result. This is a loaded 2019. It has 32 gigs, Core i9, 4 terabytes, Vega 20. Again, this was close to $6,000, now selling for under $3,000. Let's keep going down the list here. Here's a Space Gray 2018, so that's the i7, 1 terabyte, 32 gigabyte, Vega 20. Look at that, $2,100. So that's the higher tier one, which was $2,800. We gotta add, what is it, 400 for the RAM, 600 I think for the SSD, and then 350 for the Vega 20. So that computer was $4,150, now selling for pretty much half of that, a little bit more than a year later. Here's another one, that's an i9 8-core. So that one would have been, if we take the $2,800, the i9 was $200, the RAM was $400, the Vega 20 was $350. That was $3,750. So obviously we're seeing some very, very significant savings in these high-end 2018 and 19 MacBook Pros. But that still begs the question, are they worth buying? Is it even worth buying one of these machines when the 16-inch is so good? That's why they're depreciating. They're depreciating because no one wants these things when the 16-inch has all that and more for about the same, a little bit less, and it's new from Apple with a warranty. So the question is there any reason why you would buy a 2018 or a 2019 high-end 15-inch MacBook Pro at all? Like, why would you do that? All right, so I'm just gonna set up a quick search here so that we can try and filter out some of these scammy listings. Selecting release year of 2019, and we're gonna select 9th gen Core processors, so that should filter out most of these scammy listings. All right, so taking a look through here, okay, here's an interesting one. Let's see what this guy looks like. So we're looking at $1,889 for a 2019 15-inch with the i9, 16 gigs, 512 gigabyte SSD. Looks like this one has Apple Care and is in decent condition. As you would expect, it's less than a year old. So actually I guess this kind of makes sense. I could see how this would be an interesting proposition because it's less than the starting price of the 16-inch. So that's the only way that this depreciation really translates into getting a good deal, is you have to have significant savings over the 16-inch for this to be worth it at all. Otherwise, why would you buy one of these? You would have to be saving money in the process. Okay, so this one is a 2019 with the upgraded i9 and the 32 gigs of RAM. So this would have been $3,400 when it was new. Now they're asking $2,300. But the problem is for $2,300, I wouldn't do that. Because, sure, okay, we get the 8-core processor, whereas the 16-inch for about this same money is gonna come with a 6-core i7, and it's gonna have 16 gigs of RAM instead of 32. Okay, so arguably you are getting marginally better performance here, but I think the trade-offs of going to the butterfly keyboard and the worse cooling sort of negate some of those performance gains, some of that better hardware that you're getting. And you can get those 16s, the base models, for like $2,200, $2,300. So I really don't see how this would work. You'd have to be saving several $100s and be getting better performance, because not only are you giving up the better graphics and stuff that you'll get with the 16, you're also giving up the better cooling and the better keyboard. And I think those are very important. Now, before I finish off this video, I do want to talk about one more thing that's very weird, and that's that, well, there are potential interesting deals. Not all of these are good because the 16-inch still is very competitive even with the savings that we're getting on these high-end models. But you would expect, given that we're seeing thousands of dollars in depreciation with these computers, you'd think that would translate over to the older models. Maybe if you want to get in on some of the original Touch Bar MacBook Pros, like the 16, 17 models. But weirdly enough, those really haven't changed, like at all. So I've set up another search here to filter for 2016 and 17 MacBook Pros, and you'll notice something weird. They're really not any less expensive, or I should say, they're really not any less overpriced than they've been for quite a while now. Like this one right here. So that's the base model 2017 MacBook Pro, $1,300. Here's another one. This one's a little bit more upgraded, but still $1,300. And what I've found is, as weird as it is, none of these older computers have dropped below $1,000. I've seen a couple at $999, $99, but it's bizarre. Like here, this one's like the least expensive one I've been able to find, and it's pretty pretty minor in terms of upgrades, and it's got some decent cosmetic damage. So yeah, look at that bent corner. I really wouldn't purchase this computer. It's a very weird situation because as you guys might know if you watch the channel, I paid $850 and I got the cheapest Touch Bar 15-inch MacBook Pro, and based on this, that is still the cheapest by a pretty decent margin, which is very strange because you'd think that people with these older machines would see the new ones and be like, oh, I want that, time to sell the old machine and get a 16-inch. But that's not happening. And these guys, the 2016 and 17s, are pretty much stuck in terms of value, to the point where you can even find 2018 models that aren't a whole lot more expensive than this, like in the $1,300 to $1,500 range, which I think is actually a not terrible value at that price point. Because if you think about it, $1,500, you're competing with buying a new 13-inch MacBook Pro, and you'd get the benefits of the larger screen, 6-core processors, and dedicated graphics, even if they're not great. So at $1,500 for a 2018, I would say that's an interesting value proposition. But at $1,300 for these 2016-17 ones, just like it was 4 or 5 months ago, it's not a good value. So I'm very confused as to how this has not changed where the other computers have. It's a very odd phenomenon, which is why I wanted to make a video on this. So let me know down below, what do you guys think? Are these depreciated 2018 and 19 MacBook Pros worth it? Or is the 16-inch just so good that it's rendering these older computers obsolete and they're just not depreciating fast enough? Let me know in the comments below, and as usual, I'll catch you guys in the next video.